Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the APS Podcast. My name is Anupam, and I'll be your host today. When I first started APS back in 2014, the vision was quite simple. I just wanted to create a company which I would like to be a part of. So I've had significant experience before starting the company, and then I wasn't very happy with a number of things where I was not allowed to deliver projects the way I wanted them to be delivered. There's a lot of red tapes, politics, etc. So simple way was I quit my job, I started this company, and then I started contracting my services to corporations. Over the years, obviously, I have come a long way since then, and the company has come a long way. I've got a team that I have built over the years. But there was one thing that always kept me awake at night was, can I do something better? What can I do better? So yes, my company has grown tenfold since we started, but that tenfold growth has happened over a period of 9 years. So the big question was, could I have done something better that would have allowed me to grow the company probably a bit faster? Instead of getting a tenfold growth in 9 years, could I have seen the same growth in 2 years or 3 years? There are examples available in the market where people and companies have achieved that kind of growth, but they had help and support from professionals who know what they're doing. And that's one area which I always thought could be integrated as part of my business. And thankfully, earlier this year, I bumped into a master business coach. She has coached businesses to achieve that milestone. And yes, in today's discussion, we'll be touching on that point as to how she achieved or how she helped a particular business to get from $3 million per year to $30 million per year in a short span of 18 months. That's huge. And this is the kind of business coaching and guidance a lot of businesses can use if they apply and implement these tools and methodologies prescribed and taught by these master business coaches. It could get them or help them to achieve the full potential of their business. And I'm really delighted to say that I have the opportunity today to present and interview this fantastic human being and master business coach. She's also an author of several books. Yes, several books, not just one or two, several. And we'll talk about that as well in the session today. So stay tuned, and we will get to it shortly. So, ladies and gentlemen, we present to you Shirley McKinnon. Welcome, Shirley, and thank you so much for taking time to come and join this podcast today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, Shirley, I'm just before we started this podcast, I was actually going through the notions of I've been running this business for about 9 years now, and since that time, I've seen a decent sort of a growth, but not where I wanted to be. And then I bumped into you, and a lot of things actually a new perspective was brought into picture. So before we start deep diving into how you help business and stuff, I mean, we just wanted to understand a bit more, just for the sake of the audience, who is Shirley McKinnon, and what does your brand stand for?
Okay, so let me tell you what my brand promise is. My brand promise is what's possible. So I am someone who's fascinated by people and how they think and why they behave the way they do. And every business I've run and every business I've managed, I've always been fascinated as to how people think and what they do. And I've got to say, I agree with Tom Peters, okay? Tom Peters says that the average employee, frontline employee, is creative, energetic, dynamic, loyal, and totally creative, except for the 8 hours a day they work for you. And I go, have you seen the energy that they put into the footy pools? Have you seen how excited they get when it's someone's birthday? Why can't we tap into that for the business? And so I've spent many years experimenting. Every business I've ever had has been a big experiment, and started to find some amazing things that worked. And so there is a simple employee secret that can help you grow your business without stress and without having to put in long hours.
That's actually fascinating the way we said it, because you're right, absolutely right. And as a business owner, I mean, I have struggled myself to find the right people who are as excited as I am. Because during COVID, when I started a apparel brand called Elegant Femme, I was super excited. But being a technical nerd, I just knew everything except sales. So I created the brand, I found the manufacturers, I built the company, as in from the ground up, have built the website and everything. And then I brought a lot of stock into my warehouse. And after that, I'm just sitting there hoping the orders will start to flow through. But none of that happened until I had to obviously engage marketing companies and stuff, and
Yeah.
learned a lot of things by mistake, which I could have potentially avoided by, probably engaging someone like yourself early on. Nonetheless, lessons learned. But let's talk about. So you have obviously helped a lot of businesses grow from zero to hero, right? I mean, if I can use that term.
Yeah.
But one case study in particular stands out, where you have helped a business to grow from 3 million to 30 million in 18 months. How did
Yeah.
you do that?
That was just one of their clients.
Exactly. So one client,
Yeah.
tenfold growth in 18 months. That's huge.
Yes. Yes, it is. And it was done completely through the team. So many business owners, when they're looking to grow their business, do exactly what you just said. They look at the sales and they look outside themselves. They look at customer service. But again, who are the people dealing with your customers? It's your team. It's your staff.
Mhm.
So let me tell you what we did with this project. Um, First of all, my client, who were hydraulic engineers, were about to lose a very big client that was worth 3 million to them.
Right.
And they were going to cut down from 200 contractors down to 50. And my client knew they wouldn't be one of the ones that were kept on.
Mhm.
So what we did is I worked with the CEO to get out of his head. Look, every business owner has in their head what their dream of the business is, what they're excited about. They just don't know how to articulate it and share it with their team.
Mhm.
Because since COVID, people don't want a job, just a job anymore. They want something with meaning. They're looking for inspiring leaders. So when you share that vision that you have, or in my case, I work a lot with business owners with trade backgrounds. They have 3 standards they want to see happening in their business. When you share that with your team, this then becomes exciting to them as well. So we pulled the whole company together, and we presented them with the problem and what we wanted to see happen. And we put on every department in the business that they needed to all meet and discuss ways that they could support this client better. Find ways, forget tradition, how
Yep.
it's done normally. Find ways that you can really look after this client and really blow their socks off. And the most extraordinary things happened. We had the maintenance guys that went out onto site and did all the maintenance. They had a barbecue breakfast. And then they decided what they were going to do. They went into the girls in the office and they got the girls to type them up a sheet of paper with after hours numbers on it and laminate it, because it was going to not a clean environment. And then they went out on site and they plastered these after hours numbers everywhere on the site, near their motors, near other equipment, everything, so that when anything broke down, they would be the first people that the client would call. And the extraordinary thing that came from that, very, very quickly, their maintenance contract was for 12 months. That maintenance contract was extended to 3 years. So that was
Wow.
one department. So the engineers, they all got together and they thought, well, we actually customize the engines, the motors, for different environments, but we don't think that a lot of our clients know that. So they hired a bus and they did a day trip and took all the clients' engineers out to all the sites where they had customized the motors for that, for the environment. And they discovered, to their surprise, that their clients, the engineers, who were not hydraulic engineers, did not know about needing different motors for different environments. So that was a big learning. That was huge. The other thing that they did is one of the costly things about having hydraulic motors or any kind of motors is if they shut down at unexpected times because they need maintaining. That costs companies millions of dollars. So what the engineers decided they created a folder. Yes, a physical folder with sheets of paper in it, and they printed out the history of each motor and the projected dates that needed to be shut down. And then they went on site and they presented it to the engineer, who was delighted to get this, because often you see the engineers come into a company, they don't know the history of the motors. They don't know when the projected shutdown is. So they were really grateful, and of course it gave them a chance to build the relationship with them, and having someone like that grateful for what you're doing is a good start. But then another benefit came out of doing that as well. There was a reasonable turnover of engineers in this company, and every time an engineer moved on, they made a new folder and went out to the new engineer with the new folder. Funny enough, they could never find the old folder, but it allowed them to make a new relationship with the new engineer. And often they found out information from the new engineer of what their plans were, and so that really put them in a good standing. The guys in the warehouse, they had a lunch meeting, and what they did was they went in and researched the client to see what parts they mostly ordered. And these parts had to come from Sweden. So it was weeks for them to come in. And they ordered in the parts that this client needed most often,
Mhm.
and put them in the warehouse. So their delivery time went from weeks down to under 2 days.
Wow.
Um, so when we started doing these things, the chief engineer in the other company, I got in to see him and said to him, what do you need us to do? What do you need us to do to keep us on? And he then organised for us to go on to every site to do research to see what we needed to do more of. So he actually almost partnered with us in making this happen. And the whole company was really buzzing and everybody was really motivated. And every month we would have a project meeting, which I led. Now, in this meeting, we did not have all managers. In fact, we had very few managers. We kept the managers for a separate meeting to tell them what their staff were doing, because the staff were forgetting to tell us what they were doing. We would have, receptionists. We would have someone in accounts. We would have someone from every department. And every time we would have a guest person. Could have been a cleaner, just someone that you wouldn't have thought of, to make sure that everybody in the company knew exactly what was happening. They all knew what other departments were doing. So the communication was absolutely free flowing. And what we found was that they were building relationships within the company, that departments had been quite separate. And now they were all working together. So we had this amazing flow of communication going on as well. So it was extraordinary what they came up with, and the end result was that 18 months later, the company decided they were keeping us on, and we got a lot of work that had gone elsewhere. And this one client now was worth 30 million to them. Plus, there was another benefit. They started getting other clients coming and saying to them, we hear that you guys have got an amazing program. How do we get on to this program that you've got going? So, and one last thing to tell you, which was an interesting one to do, and this one is a really important one for people that do tenders, or we created a matrix and we made a list of all the people that influence the decision makers of the tenders. And we found there were 5 levels of decision makers. So, there was a purchasing officer, there was a chief engineer, there was a maintenance engineer, there was a whole row. And we found that out of those 5 people, we were only communicating with 2 of them. So we only had relationships with 2 of them. And we had other guys that didn't know us or what we could do, who were going, no, we just want to go with this cheaper tender. Whereas our guys knew that if they went with this more expensive motor, then they extended the lifetime of, and it was much more better value for dollars. And so what we did was we got everybody in that our equivalent on that list of 5 people to set up networks and to make relationships and to build relationships in that client company at their level. So we had 5 levels now building strong relationships within their business, and then turn that round to other clients as well. So we had all our people, our engineers, our maintenance guys, our warehouse guys, were all connecting with their equivalent in the client companies. And the information that they got and the things that we found out about the companies and what they were planning was extraordinary. So, yeah, we use the power of that loyalty to. But the thing that's important in doing something like that is you present it to them in a very inspiring way, so that they don't see that they've just been given an extra job to do. So there is a way of presenting it to engage them, to enroll them, and to get them to take ownership of it in their own department. So
It's fascinating. If you hear it from a third party's perspective, it's just very simple things how it all started, right? Having a barbecue and sticking up some contact numbers across the sites.
yeah,
I mean, a lot of people would think that's common sense, but it doesn't happen.
no,
And just by doing this simple act of, guys, here's our number, we are available when you need us,
yeah,
that builds the confidence and trust that, okay, this company and their staff, they're actually working with us
mm,
to help us achieve our objectives. And that's a very simple, basic construct, which I don't see happening a lot, unfortunately.
no. Well, you
And
do in my client companies.
absolutely, absolutely.
What we aim for is to create a partnership with the clients, so that the client looks on us as a partner in their business. And for example, I've got one client at the moment. His clients, whenever they have a problem, they contact him. Not necessarily for him to be able to solve it for them, but to tap into his knowledge, ask his opinion of what he can see, because they look on him as a partner in their business. So he's the one, and he's got a motto: if we can help, we will. And so sometimes they jump in and help the client solve that problem. But look at the mindset of that client. You're going to become, the contractor of choice. And
Right.
because of what it does internally, you become an employer of choice. That does all sorts of things for the growth of the company. And the other thing is, people love customer service delivered by someone who loves their job. So it impacts the clients. They love it as well. It's an extraordinary thing to watch, and watch it transform a company. It's really exciting.
No, it's such a wonderful story. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be inspired by this.
Mm.
So, Shirley, you've written a lot of books.
I
Uh,
have.
Just share with us, what kind of books have you written, and who can benefit from reading those books?
The first one I've got is called Team Play, and it's Successful People Strategies. And that's all about getting the best out of your team and from yourself. And in that, I follow a sales manager who starts out feeling like they're not making any impact on his team. Sometimes they achieve budget, sometimes they don't. And he doesn't feel like he's making much of an impact. He's also not getting on really well with his boss, and he's having problems with his teenage son. And his wife thinks he works too much. So, these are the strategies which I get him to apply to his team, to his boss, to his teenage son, because these are all examples of things that I have come across in my career. So, for example, one of my clients wanted me to work with someone who was seen as being extremely aggressive, and he didn't. And so he didn't think that he needed help with anything. So I got them just to agree to have a cup of coffee with me, and
Mhm.
asked him, if there's anything in your life you would want to change, what would it be? And he said, I'd like to be able to communicate with my teenage son. And I said, well, if I help you do that and rebuild the relationship with your teenage son, will you work with me? And he went, absolutely. And so I taught him techniques which he practiced on his staff, and he got his teenage son speaking to him again and had conversations with him, which he'd never been able to do that before. So in this book, these are all real examples of people that I've worked with. And there. So that was the first one. My second one, and that one, believe it or not, is also published in Korean. Go figure.
Oh,
Korea
wow.
wanted to publish it, approach my publishers. I think there's a lot of South Korean businessmen who have done MBAs in America,
Right.
and that book was actually used at one university as a course book. So I'm guessing that's how that one happened. The second one is about money and all the issues that we have around money, called Coach Yourself to Wealth. It's a hardback. It was Business Book of the Year, of the month, when it first came out. And it's all about the levels. It's basically aimed at Australia and New Zealand that we have that build resistance against wealth or money, or preconceptions and things that stop us when it comes to money. And I've done a lot of sales training where I've done a workshop which has revealed to them how their thoughts and behaviours and beliefs around money are stopping them from really selling really well. Tell you what, those workshops go really quiet when they discover that they have issues around money which they didn't know before. The next book I wrote was for the direct sales industry, called Running My Own Show, and it's one chapter of a fictitious couple of women that join direct sales, and then followed by coaching chapter of what one does, which succeeds, and what one doesn't do, which she struggles. But another one, which I think would be of interest to a lot of people, is called From Project Manager to Project Leader. And this one is all about taking someone who's managing their team into moving them into that mindset that I described before of inspiring them and getting them to be accountable and actually leading them rather than managing them. And I've worked a lot on oil and gas, and believe me, when you have someone that's leading the project, you very often come in under budget, on time, with a lot of extra creative ideas that have come up in the process. So those are my published books.
It's fascinating. So where can people get these books from?
They're all on
Amazon?
Amazon, all on
Amazon?
Amazon under Shirley McKinnon. Yeah.
Fantastic. So for the listeners, I mean, I'll put a link to Shirley's website, and you can also get the books from amazon.com.au or amazon.com. So Shirley, moving on to the next one. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of businesses would want to work with you, but what kind of businesses should really approach you for help?
Someone who really cares about their team and who really wants growth in their business. Very often when they approach me, they're working really long hours, they're frustrated, and they think that working harder is the key to growing the business. And someone who, like I said, really cares about their team, who wants the best for their team and for their clients, and who is prepared to be open-minded and who is coachable. So if someone says, look, it's not me, it's the team, then they don't become a client of mine. But if I say to someone, what have you done to contribute to the problem? They'll say, I left it too long, or they'll say, I don't know, but I'd like to. So if they're open to being coached and they want the best for their team, then, yep, I'm right beside them and we set off on the journey together.
So that sorts of the response you just gave kind of segues into my next question, which was, what kind of clients would you like to work with? So
the kind of clients that I like to work with are ones that have a big heart, a generous heart, and who really care about their team. In fact, sometimes they're generous to a fault, but the things that they do, and that's why they get so delighted with the strategies that I start to show them on how they can support their team more. Little things, like everybody goes, yes, we'll have a Christmas party. But listen, the reason you've got that employee is because their wife allows them to work the long hours, allows them to be away, maybe sometimes in the weekend away from their family. So when Christmas comes, my clients all send out a thank you card with a voucher in it to the wife to say thank you so much for allowing your husband to be there and to work with us. So
I never heard of that before at all. So this is fantastic. The first time I've heard it, I'm sure a lot of people would not have heard this before. So this is great.
But this is the thing. Your employees' family are part of your team, because in oil and gas, when someone brings someone from another country and they bring their wife with them, the reason they return back to the UK or where they came from is because the wife was not happy. And she didn't feel integrated, and she felt isolated. So one of my clients, and another one's just doing this, started up a wives club where once a month they get all the wives together, and the wives get to meet each other and share things and build relationships and make friends. Who'd have thought? So the cleaner is part of your team. Your contractors, your suppliers are part of your team. Now, if you stop and think and say, look, these are people, what could I do that would make these people feel good and be pleased to be part of my team? You'll find that you'll start to come up with quite a few very basic strategies, you know.
That's so simple yet super powerful, I must admit, and something I'm sure a lot of people don't think about, but I think they should start thinking. And absolutely, thank you for sharing that insight with us, Shirley.
You're welcome.
One thing that I would like to throw in: how do you see the role of technology in the kind of work that you do? Where do you see technology fitting in? Does it help you? Does it actually not help you? Interface with your work? Can it do better? Because I'm a technology nerd, as you know, and I have to know, where does technology fit into your field
Yeah.
of work?
Yeah. All right. So, technology. Well, I'm not a very technical person. I'm a people person, but there's technology can certainly make you more efficient. Can certainly improve. You know, they can help you with improving and strengthening relationships. So, for example, everybody has clients that they deal with whenever the client needs a problem, but most people don't communicate with them unless there's a problem or they want something from them.
Hmm.
So, you know, if you've got something like MailChimp or MailerLite or something like that, you can keep in touch with your clients, say on a monthly basis, and you can alert them to all the other different things that you do that they might not know about. Because this is one thing that I find in a lot of businesses, they've done one thing for a client, that client does not know all the other things that they do. So you can use technology to magnify and strengthen the relationships. You can use technology to make yourself more efficient. You know, and if you've got good people around you who are smart with technology, my goodness, the impact on your business is significant. Mm.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And so I think we're almost coming to the end of this session, but if people want to get in touch with you and if they need help, how do they reach out to you?
Well, my email is shirleymckinnon.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. My website is shirleymckinnon.com. So any of those channels will get through to me. They come to me, not to someone who manages them for me. They come to me.
That's really good to know. And for the listeners, the link to Shirley's website will be available under the description. So please don't forget to hit subscribe. And Shirley, just before we part, do you have any last words to say regarding to our audience? Any words of advice or wisdom?
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand that since COVID, now people are looking for meaning within their jobs. And you know, last April, I think it was, McKinsey did research and they found that 42% of people were intending to leave their jobs and were leaving it because of uninspiring leaders, because they didn't feel included in a community. And the good news is that these are all things totally within your power to change, to share the good stuff in your head of what you want, to involve them and enroll them and get them involved in some of the issues and problems. And this has now become much more important since COVID, because people are now not just putting up with it any longer. They're searching for that leader. They're searching for the meaning within their business, within their job. And if nothing else, and when you find out that good stuff in your head, you use it in your recruiting ads as well. So yeah, there's a lot of there under your control to actually really lift your business.
Wonderful advice as usual, Shirley. Ladies and gentlemen, Shirley McKinnon.